All right, my people, episode 11, Unnecessary Rambling. Thank you all for stopping by. Thank you all for joining me for this behemoth of an episode that we have here. Or at least I'm predicting this to be quite a large episode where we're in the summer showcase season. So we did the PlayStation predictions last week, Summer Games Fest, the June 8th showcase we'll do today, and then next week will be the Xbox showcase predictions. So we're definitely in that season, in that time of year to start getting excited about what the future of gaming holds. And so prediction time is ramping up for sure. Obviously going to talk about what I'm playing, and we got the top 10 PS1 games. We got June's most anticipated games. We got the games I'm ashamed to have on my backlog that you all voted on in the community poll. So it's a stacked ass episode. So I do want to apologize for not including the news in today's show. There's no way. The show is already humongous. I got to get on. I really need to commit to doing a second weekly show, just diving into the news of the week, because there's always so much of it. And I think it's probably worthwhile to make it a weekly running show. So I just got to take the time to really figure that out, set that out, and or figure that out, set that up, and get that off the ground. So I do really want to work on that sometime soon here. But packed fucking show today. And yeah, man. So I'm not gonna waste too much of your time. I appreciate y'all for stopping by. Oh, as you see here, well, I don't think you can see it in the camera, but I didn't get rid of my chair, but I moved my chair to my living room. Got a desk put in here, that way I can have a little bit more room. I always have my computer like resting on the arm. Dropped it a couple times, trying to get up real quick. The computer dropped it. So I'm trying to get a little bit more organized, a little bit more spacious here, and have room for everything. So a little bit of a different setup, nothing too drastically different though, but yeah, so that's that, I guess. And now we can jump into the show, and as always, kick it off with what I am playing. Alright, so I feel like it only makes sense to kind of update you on my Tears of the Kingdom, my thoughts on Tears of the Kingdom. I said in last week's show that I wasn't 100% sure if I was going to finish it or not. I ended up not finishing it. It's a great, incredibly well-made game. There's no denying that. And I probably put another 5-6 hours into it after finishing the show last week. So I played a good bit more of it. And I just really started noticing, there was nothing there hooking me to the story or to the characters at all. I just couldn't get invested, couldn't really care about the world, the characters, the story, the narrative. I hate that we live in this age now where to get the clicks, to get the views, it's all about this kind of hyper reactionary, overly... it's either something has to be the greatest thing of all time, or it's absolute garbage, or it's I don't feel that way at all. I feel like this is a very well made, incredibly polished, just innovative, unique game that just happened to be probably not for me personally, because I don't know anything about this narrative. I don't know anything about these characters, the world, and it just wasn't for me. And I knew that was a strong likelihood going into the game, and I was okay with that. I just wanted to check it out to see if I could possibly, make that stick with me at all, and see it through to the end. I think it is, there were moments where I'm soaring through the skies on this little bird-like structure that I found at the top of this mountain, and it's just the inventiveness and the uniqueness of this game. It's really at moments just sung, man. It was so special to play at times. But I know we're in there's a split in the gaming community. Some people really love narratives in games. Some people are like, get the narrative out the way, let me get to the mechanics, let me get to the gameplay. I'm somebody who really values narrative quite a bit. I love a good cutscene. I love interacting with characters more, understanding backstory and lore a little bit more. And yeah, I couldn't personally get connected with these characters in a way that made me want to. That's the other thing. It's a 100+ hour investment you're talking about, and I just didn't want to invest 100 hours into it. So I would love to come on here and share the same sentiments that everyone else on the internet is sharing. Which, it's not that I don't share a lot of those same sentiments of understanding the quality of the game. It's just, it's not a game for me. Objectively a great game, not a game for me personally, at least not right now. Maybe one day I'll have a change of heart, go back to it. I'm always open to those things, but for me at this current moment, it's not really what I was feeling. It didn't quite click with me. All right, and next up, we'll talk about a game that I did finish and a game that I absolutely was just totally hooked into, and that is Gamedec Definitive Edition. I'd never heard about this game in my life, but whenever I bought a Space for the Unbound on PlayAsia, I saw just a listing of it on like, in the whatever they say, people frequently bought these together, or just the suggestions box down below. And I was like, let me take a look and see what the hell this game is. And I started looking at reviews, and people were saying, this is a really, really solid game. So I was like, okay, let me buy this, check it out. Had a physical release. And so I began playing it. And the main hook here with Gamedec Definitive Edition, or just Gamedec, whatever, is that you are playing as this investigator, this detective of sorts, but you are investigating VR worlds that have kind of dominated society in this, it's a futuristic setup, and VR has totally dominated society, where people will like strap themselves into these chairs and they will be transported to these VR worlds and spend just countless hours in these worlds, like at times spending more time in VR than they're actually spending in their real lives. And crimes can take place in these VR worlds, like people can actually get hurt. And it starts off simple at first, where you're trying to just go and remove someone from a VR world where they've like spent too much time there, and they think that, being in that world and not releasing themselves from that could like end up frying their brain. So you're going in there trying to remove him from this VR world. You're being contracted by his father, and this is in the real world. You're contracted by his father. You go and strap yourself into the VR chair, go to the VR world where this kid is at, and you're trying to remove him from that VR world. And the thing I'll say first off is the location variety that is offered up because of the fact that you're going to different game worlds. It really offers up a level of freedom that most games can't really achieve, because you're trying to portray what is taking place as if it's taking place in one cohesive world, where the advantage that Gamedec has is it's literally like whatever whatever the developer can think up, whatever the writer can think up for the different worlds to go to, like you can go there, so it's I imagine the creative freedom that the writers felt when thinking of the worlds to build here was really, really cool. And so you're going off and you're exploring like a Western farm style location. You're going off and exploring a cyberpunk futuristic location. You're seeing some like Gotham-esque gritty, down in the slumps, the alleyways, the dark corridors. Like you get a wide range of locations, and they're all big, expansive, explorable, and offer up just a lot of variety that keeps the game feeling fresh. And essentially what Gamedec Definitive Edition is it's this Disco Elysium-esque narrative adventure, choice-based narrative adventure, kind of point and click in its nature, but you can move the character. But it's a lot of just going up to different characters, talking to them, getting information, and trying to deduce what is taking place, trying to come up with a solution for the different problems that are being presented in front of you. And you have like a deduction menu that you go back and forth between, where it has all the information that you have accumulated over your playthrough at that time. So if you're trying to solve a murder, you're trying to figure out who murdered this person, you go through and you have every time you interact with a character and they give you information, that gets ported to a menu screen where you can go back to it, look at it at any time before you want to make your final choice, your final answer for what took place. So you're just trying to solve these different crimes that are taking place in these VR worlds. And it's really cool because a lot of the the kind of meta narrative, if you will, is a lot about the future of game development, or maybe the way that they saw the future hurdles, or the future exploits that could be used by game developers if we did end up getting sucked into a world where VR became our primary source of reality, or our primary way that we want to spend our time in these different VR worlds. So you'll see shit like, child labor being used in the real world, but exploiting that through these different game worlds, and these people profiting through the kids, essentially homeless kids and shit, who are going off and you're housing these kids and giving them some. I guess this is kind of a spoiler, but fuck it, I'll mark in the sections there, where in the timestamps where the spoilers at. But yeah, you're giving these kids a little bit of shelter and housing and food and stuff, but in turn they're exploiting them to like farm currency in this VR world, which is something that we've actually seen implemented in real life, just in modern times today. Not to maybe that extent, but developers crafting games where the point of the game is to keep playing as long as possible so that you can get paid in real life. And it's like, damn, that's just little interesting observations there that this narrative unfolds. And it also hits different points where it analyzes the critique culture of people who spend their time and all their energy and effort in these like service-based games, or just these games that are these games that totally take over your life, and how the fan base can be very vocal in their displeasure for these games, but they never remove themselves from that world. So it's a lot of observation of the industry, and I just really I appreciated the shit out of the writing there, and I just appreciated how well thought out the choices were, where it is very much a branching narrative. Like, one thing leads to the next, and sometimes when you're trying to deduce and you're trying to get to that final solution, there's moments where it's like, damn, maybe if I purposefully pick the wrong answer here, I can gather more information and make an alliance with this person who I feel is probably corrupt, but I'm going to make them think I believe what they're putting down, so that then I can get closer to them, maybe infiltrate their facility, gather more intel, and then that'll help me out with the overall investigation that I'm really trying to solve. Like, at this point, this is maybe just a minor footstep to get into the door for where I really want to go. So you're internally thinking about all these things as well, where it's like, do I really want to do I really want at this moment right here to try to sabotage the case, or do I really want at this moment right here to try to solve this entire case and potentially sabotage the long game? Or do I want to lead them on a little bit, make them think I am on their side, and then whenever I really have all the information, flip the script? And it's there's just a lot going on with the narrative overall, and the villain arcs are really interesting. You'll meet people early in the game that have the relationship that you build with them carries over to the very final act and plays some level of importance in the overall narrative. And I really, really dug the shit out of the importance of focusing on these long-running character arcs. And yeah, you start off the game as like, you get essentially a customization screen where you can customize your character. You have like these different templates to select from, and you get to build a backstory, and from that backstory you are allocated a certain number of points and a natural propensity to craft a character a certain way. And then from the like upgrade screen, you can go in, and whenever you gather more skill points, you can unlock these different upgrades that will help you in dialogue. So you'll get new dialogue options, or you'll be able to hack things if you focus on more of a technical background. If you focus on more of a strength and kind of a brute force background, you can be a little bit more violent, a little bit more aggressive. And so these options will present themselves throughout the game. And it's just a really fun Disco Elysium style. I don't know about inspired, but Disco Elysium like game that offers up a really, really gripping narrative until the end. The only complaint I would have with the game in general is that there's a lot of dialogue vomit where you'll run into characters who are not necessarily essential to the main narrative or to figuring anything out, but they have tons of dialogue, and it's like, okay, you're speaking a lot, and I feel like I should be retaining this information, but none of it is popping up on my logs in the menu screen for me to go back to, so it can't be that important. But like you're almost unsure of the importance of each individual character, which does add to the mystery, to the gripping to the gripping story overall, where it's like you're not 1000% sure where the real importance or where the real focus of your adventure should lie, or who you should be interacting with the most at times. But that can also attribute to you running around like a chicken with your head cut off, just talking to people that don't matter at all to solving your like main objective. So that would be really my only complaint there. And yeah, I like I said, dug the shit out of it. Really enjoyed it. Would recommend it to anybody who is into these style of games. I think it is definitely a really, really good one. And it's not as intimidating as Disco Elysium, I would say. It's a lot more accessible. It's a lot simpler than Disco Elysium. I will say to save spam the shit out of this game, because there are moments that one small decision that you made that you know you forgot to save 20 minutes ago or whatever, that can send you down a totally wrong path, and you just might have made it by accident or whatever. Like you really need to save spam your way through this damn game, unless you just want to lock it in. Like there is a mode where you can play where it's like every decision I make is locked in. I can't go back on anything. I probably wouldn't recommend that, because the mysteries that I didn't solve, the investigations that I didn't solve, I really felt like an idiot once I played a little bit more of the game and understood how easy it could be to solve those investigations that I fucked up. So yeah, I would recommend just save spamming your way through the game and trying to get as much out of the story as possible. I think that's the best way to see kind of the wide range of possibilities with Gamedec Definitive Edition. So yeah, man, I dug the shit out of it. Would definitely recommend it. All right, and next up we got an oddball here. I played some Pursuit Force. This was a PSP game originally, but it released on PlayStation Plus this month, and you could also buy it a la carte for $9.99. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to buy this thing for $9.99. I, never owned a PSP or a Vita, or like I just was never a handheld game. I'm still not a handheld gamer, and I just wanted to check it out because I saw, when I saw it got announced for the PlayStation Plus lineup. So I wasn't sure if I'd ever heard of that. And then when I saw the footage of it, I was like, oh, damn, this looks kind of like a Grand Theft Auto style title. So I picked it up, and it's not as much of a Grand Theft Auto title as it is like a Spy Hunter-esque title, or it's a lot more in the vein of you're on rails in these chase sequences, and you're hopping out the car, just, pressing R1 to shoot, L1 to switch the targets. It has kind of that locked on, which is very GTA-esque, with the old school locked on shooting, where you lock on with one button, shoot with the other, simple to the point. And you can get out of the car at times for very brief sections, or from what I've played so far, I'm probably 4 hours into it, something like that. So I've played probably 65%, 70% of the missions. But from what I've seen so far, you can get out of your car a little bit, take cover, pressing square, take cover, shooting, and It's really, really, really simple. It's a really simple game. It not a ton is going on with it, but it's kind of one of those like lizard brain games where you just turn off your brain, listen to a podcast for a little bit, press a couple buttons, get to the next mission. There's a little bit of a narrative that they got going on there with some mild cutscenes for like the big moments of the games and or for the big moments of the story. And I don't really have a ton that I can honestly say about the game. It was just I played all of those Grand Theft Auto inspired titles back in the day. Like I would Blockbuster, anytime there was a new one released, I would go up, pick it out, check it out. And, you know, I loved that style of game so much. And so when I thought this was going to be something like that, I was like, I definitely gotta see what this is about. And you know, it's a handheld game. It was made for handheld systems, and it's very simple in its design for that kind of pick up and play ability. You're sitting on a bus, you just want to press a couple buttons while you're on a bus until you get to your next stop and, you know, get to work or whatever the fuck maybe whatever, you know, the case may be. But it's silly, fun enough. I probably will end up finishing it. I'm like 4 hours into it, 65-70% of the way through the game. It's kind of at this point for me where it's like I don't really know why I wouldn't finish it. And there's some charm to it, you know. I seeing what different vehicles I can grab, and you know, you're hopping to a motorcycle and hopping back to a car, taking out the enemies, pressing square to get cover to the side for a second, popping back up. Like, it's silly, fun enough to the point where if it's a 6-hour game, 5-hour game, I'm willing to sit through the rest of it to see if anything cool happens, if there's any other cool moments. And I don't know, at times I just need these kind of wind down games after playing something big. And I'm still reeling from Jedi Survivor, where it's like, I don't know, Jedi Survivor, it did something to my brain where it's making it really hard for me to get invested into things, because it's like I keep comparing it to that experience that I had with Jedi Survivor. And I'm not saying Pursuit Force, but just like anything that's big and takes up a lot of time, I'm like, damn, I don't really know if that's what I want. Because if I wanted to just be taking up a lot of my damn time with one game, I would just go right back to Jedi Survivor. So Pursuit Force really works for just that I want something to do with my hands for an hour or two while I listen to some podcast. That's kind of the use case for Pursuit Force for me right now. But not an awful game, definitely not an awful handheld game by any stretch of the imagination. All right, so it is now time to get to the good stuff. It is now time for the Summer Games Fest, the Summer Games Fest showcase predictions, the June 8th showcase by old Keeley, seeing what he's cooking up. He tweeted out this graphic of the different publishers that were lined up for Summer Games Fest. And so I'm just going to go through here and try to make some predictions based on the publishers that were announced to be appearing at Summer Games Fest. I don't necessarily know if he means all these publishers are going to show up at the showcase, or if all these publishers are just going to pop up at some point over the period of summer, because he's kind of claimed the entire summer as his own thing here. But yeah, I don't know. I'm going to go through the publishers that were listed out and make some predictions for what I think we can see at Summer Games Fest, the June 8th event. I might have been a little bit over the top here with the predictions. I feel like I went really conservative, really safe with PlayStation. Building my Xbox predictions, I think I've gone pretty safe there as well. I think I might have went a little bit overboard with Summer Games Fest. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, don't look at these predictions and base your expectations for what we can see at that June 8th showcase off of what's going to be on this list, because I might have went a little bit overboard here. So we'll see. Let's go ahead, and I'm not going to go over every single publisher, because you know, there's some of these publishers I don't know shit about, so I can't really provide much in-depth analysis there for those publishers, but we'll go over some of the big dogs. EA, I think it is an absolute lock that we see that Immortals of Avium game, the first-person shooter that is coming from the original Dead Space creative director. I think this shit actually looks kind of sick. It just has this fantastical sci-fi sort of vibe with this narrative-based first-person shooter. And I was talking about it. I had recently played Fear, and while playing it, I was like, man, I really hope we get back to a point where we can see more first-person shooter 10 to 15 hour narrative-driven experiences. So I'm really hoping that is what we get from this Immortals of Avium game. Obviously, EA has a lot in development right now that we still have a lot of questions for, a lot that I'm very curious about. Dragon Age 4, I think it has the slimmest of shots of showing up. I'm not going to predict that there. I'm going to say it doesn't show up. I would love to. In a dream world, that would be the one game from EA that I would want to see more than anything, and it's been a long-ass time since we have seen anything on Dragon Age 4, so I think at some point, we got to see some kind of gameplay, some sort of something with Dragon Age 4, and the longer we go without seeing anything, the more worried I get about that game. But I'm going to say we don't see anything with Dragon Age 4. I think it's going to be a while, maybe like 2025-ish until that thing launches, maybe even later. Skate 4 is another one that's in development at EA that people are highly anticipating. Well, I kind of guess people were highly anticipating until all of the information got out there about it being a bit more of like a free-to-play service-based game. I understand why they went that direction. I would personally prefer it to be like a real $60, $70 title, a new entry in the Skate franchise. So I don't think we're going to see that either. I think the one lock it in prediction that I'm going with for EA is I'm going to say we see that Immortals of Avium title a little bit more in depth. And I think that's coming out in like July, August, sometime this summer. So we're definitely going to get a look at that, I would imagine. Activision. I'm going to go with Modern Warfare 3 here for Activision. It should be revealed here, released in 2023. That's just kind of clockwork at this point. We're going to get the reveal. We're going to get an annual release. And yeah, I believe that the last title was revealed at Gamescom 2022. So they have, collaborated with Keighley for their big reveals in the past. So I don't expect that to be any different here. Now, this is a really interesting one, this next one. Amazon. I'm wondering, because it was just announced that they have this the new MMO with the Lord of the Rings that they're working on. I don't think that will be revealed, obviously, because it was literally just announced. But I'm hoping that we see that Tomb Raider title that they're funding. I really want to see that Tomb Raider title that Amazon is funding, and just I'm expecting a crazy budget for this game, and I'm gonna say we see it here at Summer Games Fest. I believe the rumor was that Tomb Raider would release before Perfect Dark, with Crystal Dynamics kind of working on both. I don't know if that rumor's true, but I do remember clearly seeing a rumor that Tomb Raider would be first and Perfect Dark would be the next game that was released that Crystal Dynamics was working on. So I really do think we're going to see something fucking crazy with this Tomb Raider title. If they're funding the shit out of this, making $150-200 million new Tomb Raider game, like I'm very, very much excited to see what we get here. So I'm gonna lock that in. I'm gonna say we get the official Tomb Raider Amazon reveal at Summer Games Fest. Bandai Namco. I'm going a simple, safe one here. There's a bunch of more out there predictions you could make for Bandai Namco. Obviously, you can do some Elden Ring DLC, like shit like that would really people would be jumping out of their fucking seats for that. I'm gonna go simple here. I'm gonna go Armored Core 6. I think we'll just see new gameplay. What I personally want to see, but I'm not locking it in as my prediction, what I personally want to see is Little Nightmares 3. I know that they are working on it. I hope we see Little Nightmares 3. But my official lock it in prediction for Bandai Namco is going to be Armored Core 6. moving on to Capcom. Once again, if we're, and I guess I'll do this for a few of these publishers here, but my dream, what I want, of course, what I want is like Dino Crisis or Resident Evil Code Veronica. Do I think we're going to get that? Not yet. If it's not going to be those two, what I really want is Pragmata. I want to see more on that. Do I think it's going to be that either? Probably not. What I expect is Street Fighter 6 is going to be the big reveal for Capcom. We've already seen a bunch of it. It's releasing this year, and yeah, we're going to get more gameplay on Street Fighter 6, another trailer for Street Fighter 6. I would love to be wrong here, or maybe Exoprimal as well with that releasing. Oh, that releases like, I think that might release in July. So definitely right around that time frame. So an Exoprimal or a Street Fighter 6 I could see. I'm going to lock in Street Fighter 6 for my prediction there. But god damn it, I want it to be Pragmata. CD Projekt Red. We know that they have 800 fucking thousand Witcher games in development. All this huge pipeline. What we're going to get here should definitely, we should all expect Cyberpunk, the Phantom Liberty DLC. And I'm very, very excited to play through that, to check that out. I think that should be a lock, that we get a release date for Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty, a look at the gameplay running on next gen. You know, it's PC and next gen only, the way that Cyberpunk initially should have been. So yeah, we're gonna get a look at that with old Idris Elba in the mix, acting alongside fucking Keanu Reeves in the game space, just taking shit to the next level. I'm very, very excited for that. I think we will see it at that June 8th event. Devolver Digital, my most anticipated indie game in development, or my most anticipated indie game releasing this year, supposed to be releasing this year. We got to see it. The Plucky Squire, this just beautiful game where you're I've talked about it many times on the channel, but I don't mind talking about it again. You're running across the pages of the book, engaging in some kind of, old school, simple, like retro action going on, and then you jump off the page of the book and it ends up being this little person, big world, Toy Story-esque 3D adventure that you're going on. It just looks so goddamn good. They announced it, said it was going to have a 2023. It was going to release in 2023. I just hope. I hope it does. Obviously take all the time you need because that thing looks magnificent. I want to see it polished and running at its best, just fucking the best state it could possibly be in. But I'm going to say the Plucky Squire. I'm going to say we do get the Plucky Squire. Angerfoot is another one that another Devolver Digital joint that I could see showing up here. The first person kicker, you're kicking down doors and shit with your essentially the whole game is just kicking shit. You're just going around kicking a bunch of shit, and it looks sick as hell. It's another Devolver Digital title that I would not be surprised to see pop up at this showcase. Disney. Here's a really interesting one because this can span into a lot of different territories that could get us very, very fucking excited, or could be pretty run-of-the-mill, simple, like, no offense, but kind of mild hype, I guess you could say. Or it could be we see that new Amy Hennig Marvel game, real gameplay of it for the first time, was Captain America, Black Panther, they got a lot of shit going on with the little teaser that they revealed at the Disney showcase last year. If we saw anything on that, I would lose my shit. Or I believe she's also writing a Star Wars game, if I'm not mistaken, for that new company that they founded. But I don't think we're going to see Amy Hennig's new Marvel game. I don't think we're going to see her new Star Wars game. I think we're going to see Disney Illusion Island. This was revealed at that same showcase, the Disney showcase for 2022. This was the 2D platformer puzzle solver sort of really, really awesome art style. I think that's probably the safe bet for what we're going to get from Disney at this showcase. So that's my lock it in there. Would love to be wrong on this. Would love to see that Captain America Black Panther style game that was revealed last year. And I think I'm right about that. Black Panther and Captain America, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've rewatched that trailer. I'm kind of losing the damn information on what actually was shown in that reveal, but I believe it was Cap and Black Panther. But yeah, I'm going Disney Illusion Island for my lock it in for the showcase. Focus Home. So this this might be a bit of a reach. This might be a bit hopeful, but I'm going Banisher's Ghost of Eden, the new Don't Nod game. Decision-based action adventure game. I loved Vampire, which would be I guess the most similar to this style of title that Don't Nod worked on previously. Just to see that expanded on a little bit more in almost this Witcher-esque vibe. Don't Nod's kind of attempt at a Witcher style title. Like, I really, really want to see more on this, because I think that they had something there with the template that they developed for Vampire. I think that expanding on that with this Banishers game, if we can see some real gameplay of this thing. I know it's supposed to be like a 2024, I believe they said a 2024 window on it the first time they revealed it. So it's a little ways out, and they don't have to, they don't have to like lock in a release date or anything, but I do want to see this. I do want to see some gameplay of it, or at least get a conceptual idea of what we're going to be doing with the moment-to-moment gameplay. But yeah, Banisher's Ghost of Eden, I think that's going to be the Focus Home reveal. Gearbox. I'm going with Remnant 2, the sequel to Remnant from the Ashes. And people loved this game. Like a Souls shooter was a lot of the terminology that was thrown out there. People absolutely loved this game. So the fact that they're working on a sequel, and if it could get revealed here, I think that's a big announcement for the showcase. Larian Studios, obviously, Baldur's Gate 3. I think we'll be seeing a lot of Baldur's Gate 3 popping up at these different events. I really do. I've said it multiple times on the show, but I do expect this to be like the biggest Baldur's Gate game by like a long stretch. Like I think that the other two have sold a couple million copies apiece, 1 million, 2 million copies apiece. I would not be surprised if this sells 5-10 million copies. I think this is going to be a humongous hit. So Baldur's Gate 3, I think we do see that there. Netflix has a lot in development right now that could be announced here. Oxenfree 2 is one that we saw at the Nintendo Indie World or whatever. I think that's a fairly safe lock for showing up. Valiant Hearts, the coming from Ubisoft. They also have, I believe, the Assassin's Creed mobile game that they're working with Netflix on, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a lot of possibilities there. I'm gonna go Oxenfree 2 on this one. You know what, fuck, I think I'm gonna go Oxenfree 2 and Valiant Hearts. I could see both of those popping up at this showcase. Next up, we have Pearl Abyss, and if I'm being totally honest, I don't know a ton about Pearl Abyss, but they have that Crimson Desert game coming late 2023, supposedly. And I believe this was initially developed as like a big MMO style title, but they have since kind of walked back on some of that and then removed some of those MMO features, if I'm not mistaken. So that makes me a lot more interested in it personally. It looks decent. I'm going to say that's the fairly obvious choice there for Pearl Abyss, that we see Crimson Desert. Play On. Once again, I'm being hopeful on this one. If I got to be honest, this is definitely a hope. I really want to see Flying Wild Hog's new game. And I know that, they're a prolific team, man. They had Shadow Warrior 3 and the Evil West last year. And I'm hopeful on this one. I hope that Evil West did well enough to where it can get a sequel. And these games are not humongous. You're talking about 8 or so hour action adventure games. And so like that, I think it's possible that we could see Flying Wild Hog's new game revealed. And if that is the case, I just pray to God that it's Evil West. I'm not going to predict it here, but if you had to know my number one wish, or one of my top wishes for this showcase, would be to just see a Evil West 2, just literally the logo, to let us know it is coming, that the fanfare, that the people supported it, liked it, and we can get back to those 7th generation third-person shooter, kinetic action style games. I just really want to see that genre revitalized, and I think Evil West did it about as good as any game has in a long ass time. So I really do hope we get a sequel to that. But what I think could pop up here is, and the one I'm going to predict, and this once again might be a little bit hopeful, but I'm going to say we get a look at that new Time Splitters title. It's been a long fucking time since we have seen anything on that, and I could be way out of my depth here. That thing might have been canceled, or some shit might have took place that prevents us from ever getting that game, but I really hope we see more on it, because once again, the nostalgia market is hot. The people that, you're talking about that 100 plus, or 150 million people owned, or 180 million people owned a PS2. I could be off on the numbers there a little bit, but I imagine a lot of people picked up Time Splitters, especially Time Splitters 2, have a ton of nostalgia for it, and I could see that coming out and being like a really hot commodity on the market today, and just tapping into that nostalgia, as long as they can deliver on the feel of the game that people expect from something with the name Time Splitters attached to it. But that's going to be my kind of wild out there prediction for this. I'm going to say we see that new Time Splitters game, a big reveal of that new Time Splitters title. So we move on to PlayStation. And obviously PlayStation will save the good stuff for their May 24th showcase. And so I was really racking my brain about what the fuck could be possible there. And I was like, okay, probably Factions. We'll see it at the showcase. And then, Factions was initially revealed at one of Keighley's showcases last year, the year before. And so I would like, okay, maybe they'll come back out. Neil Druckmann will talk a little bit about Factions 2. I could see that being a possibility. Now, I still could see that maybe being a possibility. But I was watching David Jaffe's interview with Jeff Keighley. And Keighley almost pretty much laid it out there that we're going to get a new Twisted Metal TV show trailer for the Summer Games Fest event. And he might have been trying to, throw off the case a little bit so he could skate by the question when Jaffe asked like what we could expect from Summer Games Fest. He might have just threw something out there that we're not going to see. But I'm going to take him at his word there. I'm going to say we see the Twisted Metal TV show, like the big, we got the little teaser shot. I think we're going to get a big reveal, a big trailer for the Twisted Metal TV show to let us kind of see the tone of it, let us see the humor, let us see if they're going to go into any horror directions with it. And yeah, I think it comes out in like July or so. So it's about time to really start the marketing for that heavily. So Death Stranding 2 is always one that you can kind of toss around and question because of the relationship that Keighley has with Kojima. I'm going to say no, because I think if we did see that, I think it would be at the PlayStation Showcase, with it being a Sony published title. And I don't even think we're going to see it there. It might be another cinematic trailer, because we know that Kojima loves those goddamn cinematic trailers. But I think it might be a little bit until we really get another look at Death Stranding. I might be way off there, but outside of that, I was contemplating like what could possibly take place here. And you start thinking about PC ports, you start thinking about what hasn't been ported to PC yet. And the only thing I could really think of was Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Pretty much everything else at this point has been ported to PC. All of the big titles. Obviously, Bloodborne would be a humongous one that would get people super hyped. Maybe, but I'm going very, very safe with my PlayStation predictions here, and I'm going with the Twisted Metal TV show, because I just think if anything that scale was to be announced, other than maybe a Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart PC port, anything of that scale of a Bloodborne PC port or a fucking Death Stranding 2, or like, I think all of that would be saved for the PlayStation Showcase. I could be wrong. What I want more than anything with this is just some of those classic titles ported to modern systems. It is a shame that these companies that have these legacy collections, these iconic games that are just stranded to old hardware. Like, it's almost embarrassing that we don't have an Infamous 1 and 2 available on PS5, that we don't have Resistance, that we don't have fucking Sly Cooper collection, that we don't have the God of War collection, that we don't have the, the list goes on and on of these titles that we should have collections for on our modern systems to fucking, everybody's all about this preservation, that, but like, it just seems that these companies really could give a fuck less about it. But yeah, that would be what I would want more than anything from Sony at a Summer Games Fest style event, or from PlayStation, is that we get some of those collections started rolling out so that people can go back and play Infamous in this modern time where the superhero market is dominant. Like, I could imagine Infamous coming back today and being a humongous hit once again, like we've talked about many a times. That nostalgia is real, but then also introducing a new market to it. Man, I could see something like that being a huge hit. But anyways, on into Sega. And if you've stayed with me this whole time, and I know that some of you are like, well, you said early that this is going to be your wild predictions, and a lot of these predictions seem fairly tame. This is where it gets crazy. I think Sega's going to have a huge splash here. I think we're going to get the announcement of Jet Set Radio Future, the remake. I think we're going to get the announcement of that. I also think we're going to get the announcement of the Persona 3 remake. I think we'll get both of them at this showcase. The Persona 3 gameplay already leaked, so we know that both of these are in the works, and I couldn't think of a better place to announce it. Maybe Xbox, but I don't think it makes sense with the way that Xbox does their showcases anymore, where everything is either Game Pass day one or first party titles. So, well, which are obviously Game Pass day one as well. So, like, their main focus, their main bread and butter is on their first party output and their Game Pass day one output. I don't see a world where Sega launches Persona 3 remake or Jet Set Radio Future remake on Game Pass day one. I just, maybe if Microsoft is really throwing a bag at Sega and they're starting to maybe get to that point where that's a new acquisition that's in the works. If we did see Persona 3 and Jet Set Radio Future remake both launch day one on Game Pass, I would pretty much call that a foregone conclusion that Microsoft is going to acquire, or going to try to acquire, Sega after that. But I don't see it, especially not right now with the whole CMA shit with Activision and all that. So I think they'll be announced at the Summer Games Fest showcase, and yeah, I think that's where we'll see Persona 3 remake and Jet Set Radio Future remake. Next up, into Square Enix, I think we get more marketing for Final Fantasy 16 with it releasing in June 22nd, I believe. Well, shit, this showcase. Okay, this showcase will be June 8th. So yeah, we'll get more marketing for Final Fantasy 16. Once again, we're getting in that crazy territory for Sega. For the next few predictions, we're getting into a wild territory. So kind of a bummer that the earlier predictions were a little bit more tame. So a lot of the final back end here that is really where the crazy shit starts to take place. I think we get Kingdom Hearts 4, a gameplay trailer for Kingdom Hearts 4. Once again, if it's going to be announced anywhere, you would have to imagine it's going to be announced here. Maybe the PlayStation Showcase, but Kingdom Hearts 3 came to Xbox as well. I'm not a Kingdom Hearts fan, but I believe Kingdom Hearts 3 was a multi-platform release. And maybe that's a big enough title that PlayStation could be like, yeah, we'll still show it off at the showcase. It's big enough and has that appeal enough and that legacy with PlayStation that we want it to be a part of the showcase. But I'm going to get a little crazy here. I'm going to say we see Kingdom Hearts 4 at the Summer Games Fest event. Heading on to Techland. And this is a really weird one because we saw Dying Light 2 in 2022, I believe, was when Dying Light 2 released. Yeah, early 2022. We know that they're supposedly working on a new IP. I'm going to say we see it. I'm just going to say it's one of those kind of like 007, hey, come work for us style trailers that we get that show pretty much no information about the game whatsoever. Just like a, hey, we're, a concept of, okay, it's a first person fantasy game and we need to hire some damn talent for it. So here's the announcement. Let's get some people to come work on this shit with us. I think it's going to be more of one of those style of reveals. It could just be Dying Light 2 DLC. I wouldn't really be surprised by that, but I'm just thinking a really like simplistic, straight to the point teaser trailer for their new supposed fantasy first person style game that they're working on. Next, heading to Ubisoft, and this is obviously the big question mark in anytime they're going to announce anything. It's either, holy shit, we could see something epic like a Beyond Good and Evil 2, the Star Wars game that they're supposedly working on, or we could see fucking Skull and Bones, and it's, or we could see another live service title that they'll shit out and forget about in 6 months' time. Like, Ubisoft is a company that seems to be in total turmoil at this point, and I never really know what to predict. I'm going to go with Avatar here, the first-person Avatar game that's supposedly a lot like a Far Cry title, which I'm totally on board for. I would be totally open to playing a single-player Avatar first-person adventure game. Like, I'm totally open to that. So I think we will see that Avatar game, and I think we'll get gameplay of it, and I actually think we might get a release date for this Avatar title that is supposedly like early 2024. It's been, I believe it's been the rumor that it's looking at an early 2024 launch. So I'm going to say we get Avatar. I unfortunately don't think we're going to see that Star Wars game. I don't think we're going to see Beyond Good and Evil 2. Would I be surprised if we saw Skull and Bones? No. Would I be surprised if we saw another off-the-wall live service title? No. I would love to see some Immortals Phoenix Rising type shit, Immortals Phoenix Rising 2 pop up, or a Splinter Cell reveal pop up, or a fucking Prince of Persia reveal pop up. Ubisoft has so much. Assassin's Creed Mirage is another one that I think, honestly, that's a pretty safe lock as well. I think we probably will see that also. But I'm going to go with my lock it in here. I'm going with the Avatar game as like that'll be like one of the big announcements of this entire showcase. So I'm going to go Avatar. And I think just add a little spice onto the prediction. I think we'll actually be mildly impressed by it looking fairly decent. So there's that. Heading to Warner Brothers. And like I said, man, the back half of these predictions here is really where the deck gets stacked. I think we're going to see the Wonder Woman game that's from the Monolith team, the team that worked on Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor. Like, it's been a while since we saw that reveal. And once again, that could have been a simple like, hey, trailer thrown out there, hey, come work for us. We're working on a fucking cool ass game. And but I think it's about time to see something on that Wonder Woman title. I think we could actually see a legit gameplay showing of this. I'm not sure maybe about a release date or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we could get a decent little, 50 second to a minute and 30 second long slice of gameplay of this Wonder Woman title. Also within the Warner Brothers ecosystem, Mortal Kombat 1 was just revealed with the CGI, the cinematic trailer that they just showed off recently. I think that's either a lock to see more of it, with it being having a release date for September. I think it's a lock that we see more of that either at the PlayStation show or more of that here. I went with the PlayStation show, but I would not at all be surprised if we did see that here. To have that alongside Wonder Woman would be a pretty big showing for Warner Brothers. Suicide Squad, with it being delayed until February, I think they're reworking a lot of the core nucleus of that title. So I don't think we see that until maybe Game Awards this year, and I imagine that we we'll see it at the Game Awards, and then it'll probably be pushed back to like mid 2024 or so, or maybe even delayed, or maybe indefinitely delayed at some point. I think there's too much game there to entirely cancel it, but I don't know. I'm going to say my lock for Warner Brothers is I think we're going to see Wonder Woman, and I think that's like the big, cap off of the entire showcase. I think that's what you save for the one more thing style announcement, and people go home happy looking at what is likely going to be one of the all-time great superhero games coming from an incredibly talented company. But we do also have Xbox here to talk about with them being announced to be a part of Summer Games Fest. Once again, I don't know, does that just mean they're a part of Summer Games Fest and the fact that they're having a showcase in the summer, or are they a part of this event officially, this June 8th showcase officially? Just to throw a prediction out there, I'll say we see a Starfield trailer, like a quick 2-minute trailer for Starfield to announce that the big showcase is happening the following week with the June 11th Starfield Direct. So that'll be like my final prediction. I think that'll just be kind of like a middle of the show style trailer with, like I said, I do think Wonder Woman would 100% close off the show, and then the Starfield thing would just be a little bit more, which Starfield is, I would say, a more anticipated game than probably anything on this list, but you can't really close a show with it because it's literally just going to be, if my prediction is true, it's literally just going to be marketing the June 11th showcase, the more in-depth direct that's going to be happening with Xbox. So I'm going to say Wonder Woman would be the big show closer here, but let's go ahead and dive into, what is it, 24 games, I believe, that I predicted officially for this showcase to have. Immortals of Avium, Modern Warfare 3, Tomb Raider, Armored Core 6, Street Fighter 6, Cyberpunk DLC, The Plucky Squire, Angerfoot, Disney's Illusion Island, Banisher's Ghost of Eden, Remnant 2, Baldur's Gate 3, Oxenfree 2, Valiant Hearts, Crimson Desert, Time Splitters, Twisted Metal the TV show, Jet Set Radio Future Remake, Persona 3 Remake, Final Fantasy 16, Techland, their new IP, Avatar from Ubisoft, Wonder Woman, and Starfield. So those are my 24 games that I predict we see at the Summer Games Fest showcase on June 8th. I'm really excited for this. I think that having, you have your PlayStation event that's more your first party, your exclusive stuff. You have your Xbox event that's similar, and then this can kind of be like that big third party showcase that the big dogs can kind of come together who are releasing multi-platform and kind of show off what they have been cooking up. So I'm really pumped for this one. There have been up and down Summer Games Fest events or Game Award events, but I don't know. I think we could see some pretty cool shit here. My expectations might be a little bit too high, so like I said, don't go into the showcase thinking that what I'm predicting here will absolutely be a lock, because a little bit of this is more in the vein of what I'm personally hyped for and hoping for. So take that with a grain of salt there. Plus, I'm not a fucking insider. I'm just a dude who enjoys video games and likes speculating about shit on the internet. So yeah, man. All right, my people. So it's a long show today. It's a long show today. We still got 2 topics to run through, and two pretty meaty topics to run through, I would imagine here. So, well, maybe not too much with this one, but 10 games I am ashamed to still have on my backlog. This was voted on by you good people over on the YouTube community poll, and essentially what this topic boils down to is, as the title suggests, 10 games that I'm like, why are these still on my damn backlog? And these aren't in like my top 10, or they're in no particular order, just 10 games I'm like, that's fucking shameful to have that on my backlog that I haven't played through it yet. And we all have backlogs. It's something that everybody who collects games or whatever, it's something that we all face. But I look at this, let's just go ahead and run into it, because the first game I want to talk about is Red Dead Redemption 1. This is something that I have played through about half of. I've put probably over 20 hours into the game, but I still consider it a backlog game because I never finished it and I was enjoying it. That's what makes no sense about it at all to me. Like, it's not one of those games that I played and was like, okay, yeah, I see what it is, because I don't consider those backlog games. Like, if I play something and I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, and I'm not totally hooked with it, then it's like, okay, that's off the backlog. I played it, I checked it out, and I don't have any interest of going back to it. Red Dead Redemption 1 is absolutely not the case at all for me. I was loving my experience, played through a bunch of it, and I think just some new game came out. I got fucking distracted and never went back and finished it. It makes no sense. I absolutely have to finish Red Dead Redemption 1 at some point in my life, especially with, like, I think Red Dead Redemption 2 might be the greatest game ever made, so definitely need to play through the first one. Next up on the list is Fatal Frame, the entire series. I've never played, I'm sure I played a little bit of it as a kid. I really have no recollection, no memory of playing through the Fatal Frame games, so that is a big question mark on my backlog. It makes no sense why I haven't played through the Fatal Frame games with my love of survival horror. Staying in that vein, Dino Crisis. I've played through a bit of Dino Crisis 1, never finished it. And I should have absolutely finished that game. I was enjoying what I played, and I want to see this remade so badly, but it seems like we're kind of getting to a point where we might not ever see Dino Crisis. I think at some point Capcom will remake this thing, and we'll get it on modern platforms, but I love those old school tank-based games, and what I did play of it, I really enjoyed, and I should absolutely go back to Dino Crisis and finish it, especially with how bad I want a remake. I should kind of know why I want the remake so badly. Next up, Wasteland 3. Now, this is a weird one, because this is one that I just know is a juggernaut of a game. I've heard nothing but great things about it, but I know it's a 70-plus hour big role-playing game, and that I don't have as much regret as something like a Dino Crisis, something like a Fatal Frame, games that I can get through in 10, 15 hours or so. This is one that you're committing a lot of your life to. So this is a time and place thing for me. These games I only break out whenever it's like I know I have some time to really dive deep into something. Like I have a full off day with nothing going on. Like that's what I like with these big ass games, when you just have nothing going on, nothing on your plate. And it's like, I'm going to do nothing but play this game today. I'm going to try to put like 10 hours into this game in one day to really get rolling through this, and then really get kind of accustomed to all the different systems and all the setups, because that's, these games are, they're so involved too. There's so many systems at play. I really like to dive into those with like a good chunky first start, and then kind of work my way through it. So this one I don't feel so much regret for, but I do absolutely, it has to come off the backlog, just with how universally praised Wasteland 3 is. Next up, Halo. I've never played any of the Halo games, like, at all. My cousin owned an original Xbox, and I never owned an original Xbox until I was an adult. And at that point, they were on like Halo, 4. And so I was just way behind, and I don't believe my cousin was really into first-person shooters, because I remember watching him play KOTOR, and I remember watching him play Splinter Cell, and like all these different other titles, but I don't remember ever seeing him play Halo. So I just think it was one that I simply missed because I wasn't introduced to it, and I imagine I would really enjoy it. I've heard that they're like, 15-hour campaigns, and I know that they changed the game for first-person shooters on the console space, so I would like to do like a full, or at least replay the first one, just to see if it's in my wheelhouse, if it holds up, and if I would like to go on and move to Halo 2 and 3. And yeah, so that's one that I think will be an easy one to get through at some point fairly soon. Next up is this is another one that's I feel like is a little bit more reasonable. Devil May Cry 5. I want to play this damn thing so bad, but I still need to play through DMC, the Ninja Theory. I believe Ninja Theory developed DMC, and I need to play through Devil May Cry 4. So it's just simple. Like I played 1, 2, and 3, and I just didn't play the DMC and Devil May Cry 4. So as sick as Devil May Cry 5 looks, I just know I need to play through those other games first, and that's kind of the only thing that's really holding me back from doing it. But I know, once again, these are my style of games. I love a good fucking character action game, and they're not overly long, so it's one that I will absolutely get to at some point. Similarly, the Yakuza series. Well, similarly in some respects, that's a juggernaut. That's a humongous time investment to get through that series. And like, I'm somewhat ashamed of this because of my love for those Grand Theft Auto inspired titles. And I know for a fact that I love this format with the Yakuza games because I love the Judgment games. And that's literally a spin-off of the Yakuza titles with very similar mechanics. And Lost Judgment was my favorite game of 2021. Like, I love this structure. I love this format. But to go and play Yakuza 1 and 2 and 3, like all the way up to Like a Dragon, like to get caught up, I don't know. That's one that that's more of a retirement style. That's one I'll probably burn through in retirement if I'm being totally honest there. But I'll keep up with the Judgment games as long as they keep coming out, as long as the whatever negotiation got worked out between the voice actor or the actor for Yagami and all the weird shit about the PC ports and stuff. As long as that gets worked out, I will absolutely continue playing the Judgment games for as long as they keep making them. Next up, Amnesia. This is just kind of an unfortunate situation where it came out when I wasn't following games super heavily. But that first Amnesia game, I'm well aware of its impact. It inspired pretty much everything we see now in the first person, kind of walking sim horror realm. If it wasn't for that Amnesia game, a lot of those Outlasts, a lot of those other style of titles that are in that vein, we probably wouldn't see at this point. So I need to go pay some respects to the OG. Next up on the list, Prey. Arcane's Prey. I'm kind of a newbie to Arcane. I really enjoy immersive sim titles, but I'm a newbie to Arcane in particular, with Deathloop being the first game that I played with Arcane, and then I went back and played Dishonored. And so I still need to play Dishonored 2, still need to play Prey, and I've heard great things about both of them. I've heard kind of mixed things about Dishonored 2, but I've heard really great things about Prey in particular. And I like the way that they make their games. I like how involved they are. I like how many different possibilities there are with the environments, and just how you can kind of play the game how you wish. I really, really dig that. So I definitely need to give Prey a look, especially with its slightly more horror influence going on there. It seems right up my alley. And last up on the list is a very weird one. And this is one that I talked about, I think, in last week's episode when talking about the NBA Street games. I want to go back to NBA Street Home Court. I played the shit out of NBA Street 1, 2, and even played a good bit of 3. But I never really played Home Court much, and me being such a humongous fan of NBA games, played all the NBA Lives, all the NBA 2Ks, the and 1 games. Like, I've played, if it's basketball, NBA The Life, NBA Ballers, like, I've played all of it. And to have no memory whatsoever of NBA Street Home Court, like, it just doesn't make sense. I need to check that out and see if there was something good in there, especially with it being on a console or in a generation of consoles that I love going back to with the PS3 and Xbox 360. I love going back to that era. And I just wonder if I didn't give it quite a fair shake because I wasn't as into games when that came out initially. I missed a lot of those 7th gen titles just because I wasn't following games as heavily during that generation. So I'm retroactively trying to correct some of that, but yeah, I have corrected a ton of it, but for whatever reason, NBA Street Home Court, that's one that continues to elude me. So that's going to have to be one that I check out fairly soon. All right, so those are my games of shame there, my little top 10 list of my shameful backlog. And now we'll head on into my top 10 PlayStation 1 titles. And I have to admit, with my PlayStation 1, my top 10 PS1 games, this is the generation that I go back to the least. It's weird because it's the generation that got me into gaming on like a much deeper level and really, really getting into gaming. But it's not a generation I really go back to all that often at all, if I'm just being honest. So there's a few in here that are games I played as an adult and have an appreciation for, but it's mostly a nostalgic list here. So let's go ahead and kick it off. My top 10 PlayStation 1 games of all time. And speaking of games that I played as an adult, well, we'll start it off with Parasite Eve. And I think this is the only game on the list that like I played for the first time as an adult. There's other titles in here that I have played as an adult, but I think for the first time, I think it's the only one on this list. And it's just such a unique game. I loved the characters. I thought the writing was exceptional for the time. The cinematics were great, and just I really appreciated the how heavily the story was relied upon here. It felt very Kojima-esque in that way, and it was expansive as shit as well. Like some of the environments in Parasite Eve were just so much more open than I would have ever expected. So much more explorable. Like I thought that having the full police department to go around and explore was just really, really impressive for the time. And the whole, scientific horror theme that they had going on there, I really enjoyed this title. I think the only thing that was aged on it was the like turn-based controls. I think if you modernize this, gave it that Resident Evil 2 style feel, put this out on the market, like, come on, Square Enix. I know you're looking at Capcom each year with their fucking most profitable year ever in 2023, and this renaissance for survival horror. You got Parasite Eve sitting there. You crank some Resident Evil style controls on that bad boy, get that story out that was, in my opinion, much better than anything Resident Evil ever had. And I think you could get something really, really impressive. I think this thing would sell like absolute hotcakes, and yeah, it definitely deserves a remake. So number 10, Parasite Eve. Number 9, I'm going to go with Twisted Metal 2. And I guess speaking of remakes, it's looking like we'll probably be getting one for this fairly soon. This is just... Twisted Metal is very much a childhood nostalgia pick. I haven't gone back to Twisted Metal in many, many years, but I played the fuck out of this series as a kid. And it's hard for me to pick my favorite because a lot of them blend together, if I'm being totally honest. But for me, going with Twisted Metal 2 is merely down to the fact that Axel was like my go-to character. I loved the design of Axel. Just this dude who is stuck in between these two wheels, and his like entire motive is to go and kill the person who like entrapped him into this weird ass contraption. But yeah, I thought that at the time playing Twisted Metal, the I don't know if the visual, it's not the visuals that were so much crazy, just like the size of the game and being able to freely move around these huge ass 3D spaces. It was just technically so impressive compared to what other like car-based games were offering at the time. You like you pretty much had the on-rail style chase games, like even that we were similar talking about with the Pursuit Force earlier, which obviously was a PSP title not released during the PS1 era, but you had games similar to that, or pretty, like Gran Turismo style racing games, or like the GTA top-down games. Like Twisted Metal was just so much bigger feeling than that, in my opinion. And with that David Jaffe, that style of brain concocting all of this together and putting together these crazy movie style car battles that are going on, this frenetic action with cars, like it's going to be interesting to see that series come back without someone with that mind like David Jaffe, who kind of relishes in the chaos of creating shit like that. So it's going to be interesting to see that without that flair and without that sensibility attached to it. I kind of worry that without that over the top personality guiding a Twisted Metal, that it might not be quite as unique feeling, I guess. Coming in at number 8 for me, I'm going with Duke Nukem Time to Kill. So this was the first Duke Nukem game that I ever played. And I had played a lot of the Tomb Raider games with my dad before this. So I had a sense of like what to do when trying to boot up the Time to Kill for the first time. But what immediately hooked me with Time to Kill as a kid was that, of course, the over-the-top vulgarity and fucking just the insanity of it. But more than that, with the actual gameplay, was the emphasis on the action opposed to the emphasis on like exploration and puzzle solving that you got from Tomb Raider. This, it just seemed much more, it sounds weird to say, but like it seemed much more accessible to me at the time. I understand it was super fucking inappropriate. Probably shouldn't have been playing it as a kid, but it was just super fucking easy for me to pick up and play. And obviously with all the insanity, and I love just basking in that shit as a kid, you know, having the cops, depicting the cops as literal pigs in the game, the fucking strip clubs, the over-the-top violence, the going in and taking a piss or picking up the payphone and having the sex worker on the other. It was just hilarious for me as a kid. I loved the tone of it, but I really loved having that Tomb Raider style third-person action, but in a more action-oriented game. So yeah, Duke Nukem Time to Kill just absolutely worked for my whatever 8-year-old brain when I definitely shouldn't have been playing it at the time, but I don't know. I guess I turned out decent. Number 7, Silent Hill 1. So I finished this for the first time recently. This is one that I played as a kid but finished as an adult, and I think that in terms of atmosphere, it's one of one. I don't think that I've really played another game that was quite as atmospheric, and you know, the technical limitations at the time that made Konami focus on the fog as like the preventative measure from you seeing that there's not as much world loading in as you would expect. That was a game changer for this entire series and became a staple that people like, you know, when you play it without the fog, it totally, it pulls people out of that immersive state that they were in while playing it originally. It's kind of wild what really took place there on a technical level that created this icon, this cult icon in the horror space. And just, I don't know, I loved the hoarding the resources and waiting till the final boss to use all my damn resources. And that's always been like a staple of survival horror, but I really, really enjoyed it in Silent Hill. It felt like the resources were so easy to find, but I don't know, man. I guess the crowning achievement of Silent Hill 1 more than anything was that this is psychological horror. You know, I think without Silent Hill 1, psychological horror, even that term, you probably don't see in the video game space thrown about all that often. Like, this was the creation of psychological horror in gaming. And yeah, it was absolutely iconic. Loved playing through it for the first time, or playing through it and finishing it for the first time a few years back. Number 6, going with Neversoft's Spider-Man game, the PS1 Spider-Man title. I'm going with the first one here because I think that this was the first superhero game I ever remember playing on console and being totally addicted to. Because like I loved the X-Men arcade game, and I played, you know, like some of the NES tie-in games and shit like that when I was super, super young. But the Neversoft Spider-Man title, it changed the game for me with superhero games. Having that cast of characters that I remembered from the TV shows and the comics being represented so well in game form, and looking for, at the time, looking as close to those characters, like a playable version of those characters from the Saturday morning cartoons. It was just astonishing to me. You know, that lineup of villains in that first Neversoft Spider-Man game was just insane. You had Venom, you had Carnage, Doc Ock, Mysterio. It was just stacked from top to bottom, even creating a villain at the end for you to go up against. And I, if I'm not mistaken, I think the entire story of Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man game, was crafted from the ground up. So this was at a time, when pretty much anything relating to superheroes was going to be tied to a movie or tied to something else. This was a crafted from the ground up unique story in the Spider-Man world from Neversoft. And then you started seeing the influx in the 6th and 7th generation, where you get games like Arkham Asylum eventually that changed the game, but like these games that were crafting their own narrative. And it's like, yeah, we don't need to be attached to the licensed movie that came out a few months earlier. Like, we can be our own thing, create a unique Batman story, a unique Spider-Man story, a unique whatever story, and sell like fucking hotcakes and have a really successful product. Like, the Spider-Man on the PS1 kind of laid the groundwork for that in a lot of ways. And yeah, I just personally loved it. I loved this game. It was, picking up the different fucking vases and shit and throwing it at the enemies. It was so cartoony and fun and simple. And you look at the Spider-Man games now where you're web swinging across the entire fucking open worlds, and then just the shooting the webs up into the air on the Spider-Man PS1 title that are connecting to absolutely nothing. But it's just such a fucking joy to control a Spider-Man that's web swinging through the air. So iconic. Number 5, Tony Hawk 2, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. This game was so influential to just little old whatever 7-8-year-old me. It played a major part in shaping a lot of just like my cultural influences, like the type of music that I was interested in, with this being, really my introduction to Rage Against the Machine and Papa Roach and Power Man 5000. And like, still to this day, I love nu metal. I'll be a nu metal defender until the day I die. And without Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, I don't know, like, I could have totally missed that because I was fairly fucking young at the time. And then that was really what exposed me to that style of music. It was just a game that had so many memorable aspects, from the music to the level design, and just the school, the Venice Beach level, and then giving you the freedom to create your own parks, which I believe was introduced for the first time in Tony Hawk 2. And I was god awful at creating my own parks, but I had a friend who was so good at building these just picture perfect parks. And just that feature alone that was introduced for the first time in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, it changed the game for the future of that series entirely. And yeah, it's one that I have a ton of great memories playing with buddies, playing with family members, and yeah, very nostalgic. Especially what everyone is going to go to immediately is the soundtrack, because I do think that shaped an entire generation of people. And whatever, I don't even know, I might have been like 5, 6 when this thing came out, but it shaped an entire generation of people from my generation up until 15, 16-year-old kids who were playing this for the first time and getting introduced into these different styles of music and shit. It was and into skateboarding culture. Like, these games were humongous for making skateboarding this very appealing thing that you started seeing on television, and you started seeing the Jackass spawn after that. Like, it was a cultural revolution with the Tony Hawk Underground, or the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series. And 2 would be the one I would look at as my personal favorite. You could really swap in quite a few here, but I'm gonna go with Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 because I have the most personal memories with that one. Number 4, staying with the 2s here, I'm going with SmackDown 2. And this is similar. You could go with the first SmackDown game on the PS1, but and I think you actually maybe could make a good argument for SmackDown 1 because of just like that holy shit leap in quality from seeing, the attitudes and the war zones, and then just seeing that first SmackDown game running on the PS1. It was staggering. I couldn't believe this was even possible on that console after, years of playing Warzone and added. It was just crazy. But I think I would have to go with SmackDown 2 simply because it is a much more refined, more feature complete version of that first title. And it introduced Hell in the Cell. It introduced Hell in the Cell matches for the first time into video games. And as simple and rudimentary as that match type was, it was red hot at the time. You're talking about Undertaker throwing Mankind off the Hell in the Cell. You're talking about, these iconic Hell in the Cell matches that were taking place on a regular basis in the Attitude Era, and then having a game represent it. It was just something that we played over and over and over again, and obviously it evolved massively over time, but yeah, that alone would be what takes SmackDown 2 over the top for me. I know it also had like better creation suites and shit, which we did quite a bit of creating characters and stuff, but the Hell in the Cell alone was what really took it over the top for me. So number 4, SmackDown 2. Number 3, Crash Bash. This is purely... I can't actually say purely nostalgia because I do go back to this one, not on a regular basis, but I played quite a bit of it a couple years ago with a buddy, and I still think it's incredibly fun. But this is one that my biggest like male role model in my life was my uncle, and he passed, and this was something that we played together all the time, and I just have such a nostalgic connection to it. And just even seeing the cover makes me think back to him. It's just one of those kind of more emotional connections to a game, but it's a great game. Like it's a really, really well made party style, little mini game and taking those mini games and making this fully fleshed out, like always evolving, each game evolving from one stage to the next. And there's a bunch of fun ass mini games, the pogo stick and the little air hockey, and it's a fucking blast to play. But if I'm being totally honest, that's more of an emotional pick, but still undoubtedly it's got to be on the list, and I'm putting it at number 3. Number 2, I'm going with Metal Gear Solid 1. MGS1, it fucking invented stories, man. Without MGS1, we don't get to a stage where we see The Last of Us. We don't get to a stage where we see, all these iconic stories that we're getting today. Like, I really feel that Metal Gear Solid 1 was so fucking... Obviously, I'm being hyperbolic saying it invented stories and games. That's not true, but in this respect, in this very cinematic approach to storytelling, we just didn't see much like this before MGS1. And not to mention, the story is great, but just the most badass fucking boss battles and badass villains ever in games. I don't know if there will ever be a moment, or I don't know if there was ever a moment, period, in the entire Metal Gear Solid series history that eclipsed like the Psycho Mantis interaction when she's breaking the fourth wall and fucking with your head and reading the memory card and telling you to swap controller slots. Like that moment is one of the most iconic moments in video game history. And then adding on top of that, the cyborg ninja boss fight and the fucking just the intensity of having that motherfucker pop up on you, and it's almost like panic inducing. The how unaware you are at times of his location in that boss fight, and fucking Liquid Snake and Ocelot, the sniper. It's just loaded, and each villain has an interesting backstory. Most of the villains that you interact with in that game, their stories end up continuing throughout the entire series, and it's one of the most important games ever made, probably the most important game ever made in terms of the evolution of storytelling in this industry. So Metal Gear Solid 1 at number 2. And number 1, surprise, fucking surprise, Resident Evil 2. I'm not going to expand much on this one. I've talked about it so much on the channel. Probably my favorite character in video games with Leon S. Kennedy, introducing Claire into the mix. Seeing Raccoon City, that explorable open location, was so mind-boggling at the time. All the zombies on screen at the time. Having the fucking Mr. X, that iconic reveal of Mr. X. I thought the story was fucking fun. The Ada Wong Leon interaction was always like the will they won't they little mystery that's going on. And Yeah, man, I love Resident Evil 2 so much. I thought it was the perfect combination of survival horror, tense survival horror combined with fun action gameplay. It's some of the most iconic, memorable set design or location design from any survival horror game ever made. The imagery, just, it is a visual showpiece. Resident Evil 2, it's my favorite game ever made, so of course it's going to top this list. I go back to it on a regular basis, and it's one that I will always go back to on a regular basis because I think it's, in my opinion, the pinnacle of survival horror. So those are my top 10 PS1 games. I appreciate y'all for tuning in. I appreciate y'all for stopping by. And yeah, man, hit me in the comments. Shoot the shit with me. Hit me up with whatever, discussion point you want to pull at here, whatever thread you want to pull at here. Hit me in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, leave it a like. If you want to share it with a buddy, share it with a buddy. And I would greatly appreciate that. If you're listening on an audio platform, whatever, rate, review, subscribe, whatever the fuck you're supposed to do on the audio platforms. And yeah, subscribe on YouTube, leave a comment for the algorithm, all that good shit. And man, the damn clips are doing pretty well for the channel. Really, really gathering some new viewers. So for all of you new viewers tuning in, I appreciate y'all for stopping by. I appreciate y'all for taking a chance and subscribing to the channel. I know it's like I think about how rarely I subscribe to channels that I see for the first time. So the fact that people even consider subscribing is fucking sick. I am grateful to see the channel growing, and I'm going to continue to push forward to grow this thing as large as we can possibly get it without, losing its core kind of identity here. So appreciate y'all for tuning in. Appreciate y'all for stopping by, and I'm excited, man. We're in that summer game showcase season, so I'm excited to continue our prediction saga next week with the Xbox game showcase predictions. The Xbox Summer Game Showcase, whatever the fuck they're calling it. We'll predict that next week. We'll get into a lot more other good shit next week. And I got some big plans coming down the pipe for you. Like I said, that news-centric, news-focused show, definitely going to work on that. So a lot of things in the works, but I appreciate you all for stopping by. I appreciate you all for tuning in, and I will see you good people in the next episode. Goodbye.